Hello there, people of the internet. First things first, YouTube reviewer. Guess what? All firearms today are all semi-automatic and in compliance with YouTube's community guidelines. And all magazines, which is this one right here in particular, is actually a 25 round magazine and not a standard capacity magazine of 30 rounds. So this too is in compliance with YouTube's community guidelines. That being said, hello there, people of the internet. This is my, try not to gag here, Interordnance AK47 that I've had on the channel for a very, very long time that has always had problems. And one of the biggest issues that I've had with it, well, I've had a lot of big issues with it, but I've recently done some work to it, and well, this Interordnance AK is currently at about 2,500 rounds, which is about the failing point for these right here. But I did some work to it, and I think I have it going again. I do have an Interordnance AK that I basically used as a parts kit, and I took that and another parts kit and then made an actual functional AK. But that is not this one. This one is a full-blooded Interordnance AK with some like PSA AK stuff inside of it to get it functional again. And I figured I'd go ahead and I'd bring this out, make a video, and see if I managed to get this thing working. I invested the money into some, 7.62 by 39 gauges just to make sure the headspace on this thing is good. Interordnance is known for having very, very terrible AKs. And we're going to go ahead and get into the guts of this AK here whenever I'm done testing it out. The locking lugs on the bolt are definitely showing signs of significant wearing. I'm probably going to have to replace the bolt. Hopefully one that isn't cast, because Interordnance uses cast bolts. The trunnion is also cast, and the barrel pin that holds the trunnion in place is also cast. So I'm going to definitely have to watch the headspace on this thing. The barrel itself, thankfully, is not cast. The hammer in this AK-47 is severely worn and will definitely need replaced. I would not be surprised if, because of the extremely worn nature of the hammer, if we pull the trigger and a round does not come off or go off. The charging handle bolt carrier group assembly, the little tang on the back of the AK, if you know anything about AKs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We'll show it later whenever I take this thing apart. The little tang on the back of the bolt carrier, also extremely worn out, and you can definitely tell that the bolt carrier itself is a very, very soft metal and not at all what it should be. The whole AK right here, like the only thing that I would really use in this AK if I was going to rebuild it, probably, well, this is actually Romanian furniture that I have on this thing. I would use, obviously, the sights. I would use the gas, whatever you would call the upper handguard right here that contains the gas system. I would use the barrel. I'd probably use the receiver, because the receiver doesn't seem that bad. I mean, the receiver's not really a problem. But I would replace basically everything else. I would replace the firing control group, because that is very severely, significantly, wearing out. I'm probably going to get an AK parts kit and just freaking replace everything. I would absolutely replace the trunnion. It's a cast trunnion, and these are known. These particular cast trunnions are known to wear out through extensive fire. I would absolutely replace the barrel retaining pin, the trunnion retaining pin right there, because that right there, I am certain, is going to be worn as well, because I'm seeing wear in other pins, and I'm sure that they're made out of the same exact material. I would replace the bolt carrier group and the actual piston itself, because those two are showing signs of significant wear. I would replace basically everything besides the barrel, receiver, and furniture, and the rear sight, because why the hell would I replace the rear sight? It's not a load-bearing part. But this thing right here does seem safe to fire still, so I'm going to go ahead and send some rounds downrange. We passed our inspection gauges, so the headspace is fine. The wear on the locking lugs is not significant enough for me to really be worried about, but I'm still going to have to keep an eye on that. Besides that, everything on this seems to be functioning relatively well. I have some paint on this rifle, you may have noticed, and the paint kind of holds everything back because I decided to spray paint the bolt carrier group as well. So if we have a malfunction with the firearm itself, and the slide or the bolt carrier group does not go fully forward, then that is probably a direct result of the paint. In the well, I'm going to check this thing regularly to make sure we're fully into battery with the tang on the rear of the bolt carrier group being severely worn out. I don't want to risking out of battery detonation. That would definitely be very bad. But I got a 25 round magazine right here. I'm going to go ahead and just send a round downrange. Actually, I'm going to hold this away from my face for a second and send a round downrange just into the dirt, just like this, just to make sure we fire here. Well, we did fire, and everything seems okay. Did we cycle that round? We successfully cycled that round and inserted another round. Go ahead and save that round. I'm a small gun channel, and I need all the rounds I can get. That one went. Let's go ahead and send a round at our target. Did I hit the target? I don't think I hit the target. Hold on. There we go. Readjust my sights here. I was playing with that earlier. Hey, we hit the target that time. Okay. Well, we seem to be firing. We seem to be cycling. So that's all very good signs. Let's send a few more rounds here. All right. So, very, very good signs so far. I'm not seeing any significant problems as of yet. I got a little bit of gas in my face on one of those last rounds, but let's see if I can find some of those spent shells and we will see what they look like. Okay, well, I did manage to find one single 7.62 by 39 shell, and I don't see any others around here. My guess is this AK is probably launching them off into Jupiter. I'm sure that it is overgassed to try and make up for its unreliable nature. Probably something Interordinates did, but that's just my assumption. That's not necessarily something that they actually did. Definitely seeing a little bit of bulged primer, which is something you see with overpressured ammunition, but this doesn't happen in my other AKs. Now, the headspace on this is okay, and this right here is just one example. I imagine as we burn more rounds, then I will likely be able to find more, and I'd be able to compare more to what it is that we're seeing right here. I'm not seeing any deformation on the rim itself, not seeing any cracks in the case itself. So other than a little bit of a bulged primer, I'm not seeing any real significant issues. I'm going to go ahead and send a few more rounds downrange, because why the hell not? And we're probably honestly going to step out to a farther distance, because I want to see where this AK here actually hits out at a distance. Gablamski. I can feel the slow cycling rate of the bolt carrier group as it struggles to scrape away the paint that I have bestowed upon it. Let's send some more rounds here. Every time I fire, because I don't have any sort of muzzle brake or compensator or anything on this AK, every time I fire, the fireball that comes out of this thing is significant. All right, I probably should have kept that. Oh, nope. Okay. All right, this is one that we just fired, and the bulging on this one is significantly less than that other one. It is possible that that was an early cartridge that I had sent through, and I may have had like some funk, some buildup in this barrel, because I have cleaned this rifle before I used it, and I actually used paper towels to clean it, and paper towels oftentimes leave a little bit of debris in the firearm, so that may have caused a little bit of overpressure, but that round there looked fine. Let's see if we can find any others. Well, at first glance, I'm gonna go ahead and say, I don't feel like looking for more. So this one right here looked all right, and I'm not getting any more of that, blowback in my face that I was getting, so definitely a very good sign. Let's go ahead and step out to a distance, and I wanna see where this AK hits, because I've actually never used this AK at a distance. And I mean, we're hitting our target at the 50 yards that we're at. Let's go ahead and step out to 100 and see how that goes. I do not trust the safety on this thing because of how wore out the fire control is, or the fire control group is. Yeah, I don't want one of those wore out sears to like snap and break, or potentially not be on the trigger mechanism very tightly. So although the safety is engaged, I'm still gonna be wary and mindful that my AK47 is there and loaded. Let's step out to a distance. Okay, so Kevin has come to join me. Hi, Kevin. How are you doing, buddy? He's come to join me, and he's just gonna hang out for a minute. I'm out here at the 100-yard mark, and I have no idea where this AK hits. I know on all of my other AKs that I own, the steel ammo actually just, I don't know what it is about the steel ammo. Any other ammo hits right at point of aim. But steel ammo only hits at point of aim whenever I adjust my rear sight out to 300 meters. I do not know if this AK is going to be the same as that, but that's one of the things that we're here to test out. I've had people tell me, hey, why don't you just, adjust your front sight so it hits at point of aim? And I'm like, hey, I don't use steel case ammunition unless I'm, on the range, in the event that I need my AK for any real significant stuff. I have actual brass case ammunition, which does hit point of aim, and that's what I have it zeroed for. So that's just the reality of what it is that I have going on with that. Let's go ahead. I got my steel target down there freshly painted. I'm going to go ahead and just send 2 rounds here downrange, and I want to see where they hit. Aha, my safety is on. Let's do that again. I think I hit it, but I'm not certain. Whew, that was a fireball. Kevin, you're getting in the way, buddy. Aha, this sure explains why it was a fireball. This primer right here actually blew out. How do you like that? We had a little bit of a detonation of a primer right there, so that's something I'll have to look into. Let's go ahead, well, actually I'm going to wander down there and see where these rounds are hitting. Okay, as expected, we are hitting low with this ammunition, which is what we do on all of my other AKs as well. And thinking about it as to what might be going on with that blown out primer, which is likely what happened last time I got, hot gas in my face from this rifle. If I had to make an assumption, since the headspace on the rifle is good, I would bet that where the hammer contacts the back of the bolt, I'm willing to bet that there's some wear there and some bend and some mushrooming and whatnot, and the hammer hitting the bolt is likely driving the firing pin a little further forward than it's supposed to, and that's likely puncturing our primers. That would be my assumption, and I bet that swapping out the bolt in this thing and potentially the extremely mushroomed hammer would likely take care of that situation, since the primers are popping out. Still don't think it's going to be any significant problem, at least not right now. Let's go ahead. I got this set out to 300-yard graduation, which is what is required for all of my other AKs. Let's go ahead and send another round downrange, because why not? See if I can manage to hit our target there. Kablamski. I'm not sure if I hit it, but man, that was probably pretty close. Aha! I think I heard the clink of steel on that one. I can say, with this AK, it appears to be very accurate, because the 2 rounds, although they hit low, man, they were right beside each other. I'm going to walk down there and look at that target now. Okay, after a bit of off-camera test firing, trying to figure out what the hell this AK47's hitting, I got 2 rounds left, and I figured it out. Just like with my other rifles, well, all my other rifles in 7.62x39, whenever I shoot the steel case ammunition, I have to have this graduated out to 300 yards in order to be zeroed at 100 yards. That's just the nature of the steel case. And same exact stuff that has been doing exactly what it's been doing. I've discovered that this particular AK, the front sight needs to be adjusted a little bit for windage, because this AK appears to hit about a foot right. And I did not realize that at first. I thought, at first I was hitting a little high or a little low, because I'd go down there and there'd be no shots on target, but I would see like spalling and whatnot on, the target. So I was thinking, hey, maybe I'm just hitting a little bit low. So I would adjust a little higher, nothing, a little higher, nothing. I'm like, there's no way at this point. So I ended up adjusting left and right, Kentucky windage adjusting left and right, and my glasses are fogging up. Kentucky windage adjusting myself left or right, and I discovered that this AK does hit about a foot right, probably at about 60 yards or so. I have not tried at this distance, so I'm actually about to try that. Let's go ahead, send a shot downrange now that I have my glasses unfogged. I haven't had much issue with the punctured primers other than that one. I've also noticed the gas in my face has also stopped. So I'm gonna go ahead and aim for the left side of the target. We'll see where we hit. Oh, I heard a clink, so that was definitely a hit on target. Yep, I see the target moving. Okay, so I have to adjust the windage on this just a little bit. Go ahead and push us about a foot or so to the left in terms of our point of aim. So I have the AK up and running. It just went through a whole magazine with very, very little issue. I'm going to go ahead and check out the bolt, see if I can figure out why we were getting issues with the primer popping. This is just regular mil-spec ammunition. This is factory ammunition. It's not hand loads or anything like that. Headspace is good. The pressures on the rounds should be good. Like I said, my bet is the deformations of the bolt and the hammer. Let's go ahead and take this apart, and I will show you guys exactly what I'm dealing with here. All right, before we head over there, I found some cases from the AK that I just fired. And we definitely, absolutely, 100% have firing pin over travel, because this dimple in this primer is way deeper than it should be. So that is something that I will have to address, but it's not going to be any significant issue for the AK. It shouldn't cause any problems, especially if I get it solved before firing this thing for any long-term amount. I don't see any other cases, just these two, but they both tell the same exact story, so that's why we popped our primer. All right, new plan. Remember earlier whenever I ejected that round from the AK? Well, I had it in my pocket, and I just have one singular round of 7.62 by 39. We can't very well go home with that. Let's go ahead and just send it downrange here. I figured I'd go ahead and I'd turn on the camera while I did that. I don't have my microphone on, so the audio is probably a little different than it was earlier. Aha! I did clink the steel, so I have confirmed that we are hitting about a foot to the right. Let me walk down there and see how the elevation looks. Okay, the rifle has already been cleared and I got the dust cover off. Let's see how well I can disassembling AK with just one hand here. Come on, baby. There we go. This right here is not really something that can go wrong. That's just our recoil spring there. What we're looking at is in the guts of this thing. This right here. So this is the back tang, and it doesn't look that deformed because it's been painted, but anyone who knows how these are supposed to look, yeah, this is pretty significantly mushroomed right about there. I mean, you can really see it on the left side of this carrier right here. And our bolt itself, go ahead and pull this bad boy out of here. Our bolt itself on the locking lugs, you can see some significant mushrooming and deformation. That's because these bolts are just cast. These right here are just cast metal. You see it on both locking lugs. Real significant deformation. So eventually that is going to be a problem. So I will have to bear that in mind moving forward. Anyone who has these AKs, you will have to replace these at one point or another. Probably going to have to replace this too with how much is mushrooming, just because that tang right there is essential for preventing out of battery detonations. And our hammer on the inside right here has mushroomed out to the point to where it's like really, really bad. The hammer is a significant issue right there. I don't see any issues on the back of the rear trunnion or anything like that. But that hammer is something else, and this right here is something that the bolt carrier gets caught on whenever it goes back and forth. So that's actually something that happened before I painted this thing, but the paint definitely does not help. But this right here is definitely a very soft metal, and I'm willing to bet the combination of the soft metal being molded on the hammer and probably the, oh yeah, back here is mushroomed as well. Between the hammer and the mushrooming of this bolt right here, I'm willing to bet that right there is why we're getting over travel with this firing pin, because that's supposed to be as far as it goes. But you can actually see how there's a little bit more of the firing pin sticking out of the back of the bolt right there, just because it's mushroomed down. So exactly that right there is why we're getting popped primers. So next replacement is probably going to be the bolt. I'm not going to worry about doing the trunnion and the barrel pin until I start failing or getting close to failing those gauges that I have. I'm probably going to adjust the front sight on this AK so I can have this properly zeroed for steel case ammunition, because I'm not going to use this AK for any practical purposes. It's just going to be a range AK, so that's something I can do. And I got to adjust the windage because this does shoot about a foot right, so that's also something that I can do. I got all the equipment and whatnot I need to, well, I got the equipment that I could use to replace the front trunnion and barrel pin and whatnot in this thing if I so chose to, but I'm not going to do that unless I actually have to. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Of course, I could just get a parts kit, and hell, I mean, at that point, I'd replace absolutely everything in this AK besides the receiver itself and the barrel. Basically everything else would be disposable because it's just so soft. It's very, very soft metal, and it would be very easy to replace all of that. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and end this video here because I don't have much else to add to this. So I'm gonna say, hey folks, thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Description down below has links to all sorts of stuff. Check out Utreon, which is something that I'm going to start getting involved with. I definitely recommend you guys check that out. I got a lot of really cool Utreon only stuff over there, or at least I will, hopefully soon. So things there that YouTube won't allow me to put here. So go ahead and go check that out. And I am going to reassemble this AK, mess with my sights, check it for zero, you know, odds and ends stuff. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.